Ma'am, now in your screen itself it is visible, ma'am. Now we are changing, ma'am. Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, in your screen itself it's visible now, ma'am.
Now it's visible. Huh?
Yeah, ma'am. You can go to that slide where we left, ma'am. Okay.
அப்படி போகக்கூடாது ஸ்லைட் ஷோல போக முடியாது
இல்ல மேம் இதுவே ஓகே தான் மேம் ஃபைன் மேம் இதுவே பெட்டர் தான் நல்லா தான் தெரியுது மேம்
பரவாயில்லையா
ஓகே
so
ஓகே மேம் நோ இஷ்யூ
were you able to see all this which I spoke?
எஸ் மேம் ஃபைன்
Okay,
involution everything.
so all this I spoke regarding the muscles, the blood vessels, the endometrium. I told you. Was it you were able to understand all that?
Yes ma'am we can clear correlate.
The clinical assessment, the measurement of the uterus, the height of the fundus is about 13.5 centimeters, and then it starts involuting, and then it is the involutions completed by the 6th week, and after the 6th week the uterus is no longer a abdominal organ, it is a pelvic organ. Okay, and then I told about the vagina. You want me to repeat or shall I go to the next slide? You want me to repeat or you want me to go to the next slide? Sharad?
You can go ahead, ma'am. You can continue. We can continue
where we left itself, ma'am. No, need not repeat.
Yeah. Then I spoke to you about the lochia rubra, serosa, and the alba. And why at all we are giving importance for the lochia? Is this seen the slide? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We can see.
So the clinical importance is that it becomes malodorous or it becomes offensive when there is puerperal sepsis, and the most common organism is the E. coli. So it is scanty or absent in infection or the lochia metra. Metra means the uterus, some infection in the uterus. And when there is a excessive infection, it causes an offensive smell. The red color, if it persists, it denotes that it is subinvolution, because it has to go to the stages of red color, lochia rubra, then serosa and alba, where it becomes very pale. So if that has not occurred, then it shows that it is a subinvolution, which is due to the retained products of conception, which causes a secondary postpartum hemorrhage. Lochia alba beyond 3 weeks, that is the last stage, shows that there is a local genital infection. Now, having seen the changes in the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, all the pelvic organs, and about the muscles and the blood vessels, we need to know what are all the changes in the breast and lactation. What are all the changes that occur? So physiology of lactation is very important, and this you would have read in physiology itself. So that this is just a repetition. So there are 4 stages in the changes in the breast or physiology of lactation. First is the mammogenesis, second is the lactogenesis, then the galactopoiesis and the galactokinesis. Are you able to hear me?
Yes ma'am, fine ma'am. Now it's everything fine.
So what happens in mammogenesis? The mammary duct and the gland, there is growth and development. So this is the development of the breast. And in lactogenesis, there is initiation of milk secretion in the alveoli. In galactopoiesis, there is maintenance of lactation, and galactokinesis, there is removal of milk from the glands. So the general physiological changes that occurs soon after delivery, the main thing that you have to observe. Okay, so the thing is that when you are posted as a house surgeon soon after your final year, when you are asked to do a labor ward and soon after delivery, what are all the things that you have to see in the patient? The first 24 hours, okay, is very important in any patient. Okay, and the first 2 hours after delivery is very important, and that is the stage where you will miss a postpartum hemorrhage. So you will have to look into all the vitals. The first and the foremost thing is the pulse. This rises and settles down to normal on the second day. Initially, there can be a tachycardia. Then the temperature, any rise in temperature above 0.5 degrees centigrade suggests a genitourinary infection and the urinary tract. So what happens during labor? There is pronounced diuresis on the second or the third day, that is soon after the delivery, because there is the capacity of the bladder increases and there is edema of the trigone, okay, and generally it becomes edematous and the capacity of the bladder increases. So what happens, there is retention of urine and there is a pronounced diuresis soon after delivery, that is on the second or the third day. Sometimes because of over distension, the patient can have an incomplete emptying and also the presence of a residual urine, and this is more prone for infection. And for these sort of patients, it is better to catheterize and let out the urine such that you don't promote stasis and infection in the urinary tract. So this is the commonest change that occurs in the urinary tract. As far as the gastrointestinal system is concerned, there is increased thirst. That is because she would have lost a lot of electrolytes and also diuresis. So there is increased thirst and constipation. That's why we ask them to take a lot of water soon after delivery. But you know, in our setup, the patient is delivered, the attendant beside would discourage her to take water, and she will say that some adverse consequences can occur if you take a lot of water. But that is a very bad thing. You should not counsel the patient for that. You have to ask the patient to consume a lot of water such that she doesn't go for a constipation. Then, regarding the weight loss, you all know that in pregnancy, the mother would gain about 9 to 10 kg of weight throughout the pregnancy. But soon after delivery, there will be a weight loss of 5 to 6 kg due to the expulsion of the fetus, the placenta, the liquor, and blood loss. 2 kg during the puerperium due to diuresis, and this is continued up to 6 months of delivery. See, all these physiological changes you have to know. And what happens to the blood values? There is a reduced blood volume immediately, which will return back to normal in 2 weeks. So the blood volume will decrease about 30%. But you see, there is a rise in the cardiac output, and which will return back to normal in 1 week. So that is why in the initial period, okay, soon after delivery, in the first 48 hours, because of the increased cardiac output, you have to have a monitor, you have to have a strict vigil on the patient. So that is why in heart disease patients, we take utmost care because of the initial rise in cardiac output soon after delivery, which will return back to normal. Leukocytosis because of stress and hypercoagulable state for the first 48 hours. You know, the hematocrit values will be increased. Fibrinolytic activity, if you measure the serum fibrinogen, it will be enhanced in the first 4 days. What happens to menstruation? When does the patient get menstruation? See, when she is breastfeeding, definitely during that period, most of them will not menstruate. But menstruation resumes within 6 to 8 weeks. As far as the ovulation is concerned, that in a non-lactating mother, it is 4 weeks, and in a lactating mother, it is 10 weeks. So this is because of the increased prolactin and the negative feedback of the LH and FH. So ovulation does not occur. And in the postnatal mother, you always have to advise them on exclusive breastfeeding, 98% contraception up to 6 months. So because of breastfeeding, the patient will not have ovulation and she will not have the chance of conceiving. So this is the best contraceptive, and hence you have to promote on exclusive breastfeeding. So having known about the definition of puerperium, the various changes that occur in a puerperium, and how you're going to monitor the patient in the puerperium, you need to know how you're going to manage a normal puerperium. To restore the health of the mother, what are the things that you're going to advise to the patient? The first and the foremost is rest and early ambulation. See, they will be thinking that soon after delivery we should not walk and all that, but you have to promote early ambulation. The other thing is the emotional support, diet and sleep. They should have a proper sleep and diet full of calories and protein. They have to have a good protein diet and improve their calories, because they would have lost a lot of electrolytes, and diuresis has occurred soon after delivery. So, and the other thing is the emotional support to the mother. Then if at all, if the patient is a Rh negative, then you have to promote the anti-D immunoglobulin, which is given within 72 hours of delivery, which is around 300 microgram. And the maternal and infant bonding is very important. See, you have to promote the breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding, and the mother should have a bonding towards the child. And only when the baby learns to suckle, they can promote a exclusive breastfeeding for the infant. And postnatal exercises, because you know the abdominal fat, okay, and the rectus abdominis muscle, they have to revert back to normal, come to the same stage. So for that, you have to promote postnatal exercises for the mother. And in some individuals, you can find a divarification of a recti, where if you put your hand in between, you know, there will be a separation and you can feel the abdominal contents also. So in order to avoid all this, because you all know that the uterus has assumed a size of 1000 grams, and it went up to the xiphisternum. So it has occupied such a large place in the abdomen. So the rectus abdominis muscles, it will be very loose. So you have to promote the postnatal exercises such that it reverts back to normal. So to prevent the infection is the most important thing that can occur in the postnatal period, and it depends upon the hygiene of the mother. So to prevent the infection, what are all the things that you would advise? First, you would care for the bladder. So she must not she has to void frequently, and full distension of the bladder should not be promoted. Then care of the vulva and the episiotomy wound. Always you have to care for the episiotomy wound. And nowadays, you know, we are using only Vicryl, and previously we used to use catgut, where sometimes it will cause a pain for the mother. But nowadays, you know, when the wound is healthy, and if at all, if the patient is having pain, and in order to promote the wound healing, you can give some povidone iodine ointment or something like that for the better healing of the episiotomy wound. Then maintenance of the asepsis and proper hygiene, that you have to teach the mother. Hygiene is very important. Then immunization, like if they are not taken the rubella vaccine, they can take soon after delivery, and you can promote for a DT vaccine also. Then to promote the breastfeeding and the breast care, which is very important. So soon after the delivery, when the mother starts nursing the child, the importance of the breast care is very important. She has to always clean her nipple, and then she has to feed the child. And care of the breast is very important. And wearing brassiere is also very important, because soon after delivery, the mother will she'll feel comfortable if she wears a loose garments. But care of the breast is very important in the postnatal period. And you also have to definitely motivate the mother for contraception. For any kind of contraception, whatever you can give the option to the mother. It can be a IUCD, or it can be a DMPA, or it can be a pill. Whatever the contraception the patient needs, you can help her out. Now, if at all some kind of minor ailments occur during the puerperium period, that is the first 42 days or within the 6 weeks, how are you going to treat? Some patients can have after pains. What do you mean by after pains? That is, soon after the delivery, in the first 2 or 3 days, the patient can have a kind of an abdominal cramp. And this cramp also, it will be enhanced when the mother feeds the child. So when the infant suckles, what happens? Oxytocin is released, and this can cause contraction of the uterus, which results in after pains. And for this, you just reassure the patient. You can attempt a uterine massage. You can give some analgesics and antispasmodics, and this is the treatment for the after pains. Some patients can have a perineal pain. That is because of the stretching of the perineal muscles during delivery. For that, you can advise sitz bath or analgesics. And definitely, these patients would have had iron, calcium, okay, and B complex in the antenatal period. This should be continued for the next 3 months soon after delivery. So having known about the normal puerperium, you should know about the abnormal puerperium. So you should know what is the definition of puerperium, what is the period of puerperium, that is the 42 days or 6 weeks following the 3rd stage of labor. And you should know what are all the changes, the anatomical changes that occur in the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, the perineum, okay, and the pelvic muscles and the blood vessels. Then you should know what are all the physiological changes that take place, what is normal, what is abnormal. You should know about the secretion of the vagina, which is called as lochia, and about the lochia you need to understand. And soon after the delivery, what are all the, how will you care the patient, what advice would you give to the patient? That is very important. And if they have any minor ailments, you have treated. So this is all about the normal puerperium. As far as the abnormal puerperium is concerned, this is very important. This will be asked as a short note for you. So puerperial fever, that will be a short note for you, or puerperial sepsis. So puerperial pyrexia is the fever that occurs during the puerperial period, that is in the first 6 weeks, which can be as a result of any infection of the breast. It can be mastitis, or it can be due to urinary tract infections, or it can be due to infection of the perineum, the vulva. Okay, if the hygiene is not proper, she can have fever, or because of without an early ambulation she's going to lie down for a long time because of the deep vein thrombosis, thrombophlebitis, she can have a fever. So puerperial pyrexia is a very important topic, which is an abnormal puerperium, which will be asked as a short note for you. Then puerperial sepsis. I told you about all these organs, the urinary tract, the system, the urinary system, the genitourinary system, and the perineum. When it gets infected, it results in puerperial sepsis. Then the subinvolution of the uterus. The subinvolution of the uterus will occur when there is a source of infection. The main infection which occurs during pregnancy or soon after pregnancy is the E. coli. And as I told you earlier, when I was explaining to you about the lochia, when the lochia rubra, when it persists, it shows that there is a subinvolution of the uterus. And this subinvolution of the uterus is reflected on the mother's health. If there is anemia, definitely she can have a subinvolution of the uterus. So that is why we are concentrating on treating the mothers when they are having anemia in the antenatal period. And nowadays, you know, we are at utmost care. We are treating adolescent anemia itself, such that the patient doesn't go for an antenatal anemia. That is, during the antenatal period, she doesn't have anemia. And if she is anemic during her antenatal period, definitely soon after delivery, complications like subinvolution of the uterus, lactation failure, all that can occur. Then a secondary PPH. When there is retained products of conception, okay, what happens? These bits gets infected, and after 2 weeks, the patient will come to you with a bleeding PV, which is called as secondary PPH. There are 2 types of PPH, the primary PPH and the secondary PPH. The secondary PPH, if anybody asks you what is the reason or what is the etiology of a secondary PPH, tell 3 times: infection, 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 sepsis, sepsis, and sepsis. So that is the reason. And first you have to treat the sepsis and then go on with the definitive management. As far as the breast is concerned, if you don't care for the breast, what all the problems that can arise in the breast, the nipple can get retracted. It can be a cracked nipple, or there can be a massive engorgement, breast engorgement, when she is not feeding properly. So that is why we ask them to feed alternatively. They have to change the breast. Or when there is an infection, it can result in a mastitis, which will result in a puerperial pyrexia. Breast abscess and lactation failure, as I told you, if there is any problem in the antenatal period, if the mother is having an anemia, it can result in a lactation failure. Then, as far as the urinary system is concerned, it can result in a urinary tract infection. And as I explained to you, it is because of the bladder which is distended, there is urinary retention, and when she is not voiding urine, definitely it can go in for sepsis. And the patient sometimes can have a urinary incontinence also. In the puerperial period, we always give care for the patient, ask them to do early ambulation. Okay, if it is not done, definitely it will result in a deep vein thrombosis, where the patient can have a swelling and redness, and because of that the patient can have a puerperial pyrexia. Then I also told you that you have to give an emotional support to the mother. When an emotional support to the mother is not given soon after delivery, the condition which is known as postpartum blues can arise, where the patient is always depressed and she is not interested in the surroundings. She doesn't feel like breastfeeding also. But when this condition is not treated properly, it can go up to puerperal psychosis also. So that is why the emotional support of the mother is very important. And last but not the least, the obstetric palsies. So this palsy can occur because of the pelvic arthropathy. So this happens because when the patient is put in lithotomy, or when the patient is subjected to a cesarean section, operative delivery, okay, well, soon after the delivery is over, they are not ambulatory. So that is why we encourage that, and this sometimes might result in a obstetric palsy also. So these are all the abnormal puerperium that is encountered, and this can be asked as a short note for you, in which puerperial pyrexia is very important. So you might be thinking, this is a very small topic, what they are going to ask from this. But from in the Viva, in the last exam, the first question was, what is the definition of a puerperium? None of them knew, because there are, you cannot say as you wish. Definition means it should go as a definition. That is very important. It cannot be as you like. So the definition means it is, you have to tell properly that it is a period following childbirth during which the pelvic organs and the other body tissues revert back approximately to the pre-pregnant state, both anatomically and physiologically. This is the exact definition of a puerperium which the examiners will expect. And you have to know the changes, the what all the care that you're going to give to the mother, and regarding the immunization, and mainly about the contraception, which is very important. And you should also know about the abnormal puerperium. It is a very small and interesting topic, and I think I made it interesting for you also. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.